The first twin sun of Vascor burned the horizon orange as Kyle dragged himself through the cracked glass sands toward the pit. Every step sent shards crunching beneath his boots, remnants of the once grand arena that had been built to showcase horrors. His wrists ached where the iron manacles bit into his flesh, gifts from the consortium who trafficked human souls for sport. He had survived 5 matches so far, each a brutal trial against genetically spliced beasts. But tonight's opponent was whispered to be the deadliest yet, a chimera bred from 3 predatory species. Kale adjusted the jagged spikes of his salvaged gauntlets, firelight dancing off their polished edges. Pain sharpened his focus. Fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. At the pit's edge, the roar of vipers echoed through metal grandstands packed with alien spectators. Hybrid creatures perched on elevated platforms, their multifaceted eyes glinting like jewels in the dusk. Kyle's gaze swept the crowd until it landed on her. Ilara. She stood apart on a dais of fallen columns, pale blue skin luminous in the dying light, tattoos of white swirling vines etched across her arms and neck. Her eyes, liquid silver, were locked on him with an intensity that stilled his racing pulse. She was the Beastmaster, exiled for tampering with her charge's minds, to protect innocence. Now she watched the human slave she'd secretly shielded. In that instant, Kale felt more seen than he had in a lifetime. The arena gates belched pale steam as the chimera emerged, a monstrous quadruped with the head of a jackal, mandibles of a scorpion, and fur patterned like a desert moth. Its eyes shimmered with alien cognition, its tail flicking venomous barbs. The beast flexed muscled limbs and emitted a bone-rending shriek that rattled Kale's chest. He raised his gauntlets, heart pounding in rhythm with his ragged breath. Memories of past defeats flashed. The leopard bear's crushing jaws, the tusked boar's gore-soaked charge. But Ilara's unwavering gaze lent him a steadiness he'd never known. She whispered in his mind, not commands, but conviction. You are more than prey. And in that thought, Kale found the spark of defiance. The chimera lunged with terrifying speed. Kale sidestepped, the beast's claws carving arcs of molten sand where he'd stood. He rolled, slammed a spiked gauntlet into its flaring flank, and felt bone-deep heat surge through him. The crowd's roar swelled, some cheering the kill, others trusting the Beastmaster's will. The chimera reared, stinger primed, but Kale closed the distance in a heartbeat, catching the tail mid-slice and wrenching it aside. Venom sizzled on his gauntlet, hissing like dragonfire, but pain was a distant echo now. He drove both fists into the creature's chest, steel spikes into alien flesh, until at last it collapsed in a cloud of dust and dissolving spores. Silence washed over the pit as Kale stood victorious, blood and venom dripping from his arms. The crowd's hunger turned to stunned awe, then broke into a cacophony of approval. Above, Ilara exhaled, relief and pride mingling in her telepathic touch. Kale lifted his gauntlets high, not in triumph, but in recognition of the bond forged in battle. He felt her mind clear and open, gratitude, admiration, something softer, hope. For the first time, he believed he could be more than a slave. He believed he could be free. The night air outside the pit hissed with steam as Kale and Ilara slipped into the shadowed galleries beneath the arena. Broken, luminescent vines draped from rusted rafters, their pale glow guiding them past silent cages that once housed beasts. Kale's gauntlets still pulsed with residual venom fire, and he flexed his fingers, marveling at the tremor of life coursing through cold steel. Ilara led him down winding corridors, every footstep echoing like distant thunder. She murmured, fragments of her past, how she'd awakened the telepathic bond in her chimera to protect it from cruelty, only to be cast out by the consortium. Kale listened, empathy blooming in his chest. In return, he shared the nightmares of human traffickers, the chains, the blood sports, the nameless fear. Their shared scars wove them closer. They reached a reinforced hatch etched with consortium insignia. Ilara traced the glyphs with a trembling hand, momentarily faltering as if the symbols whispered memories. Then she pressed her palm, and the hatch unlatched with an electric hum. Beyond lay a cavernous amphitheater lined with sleeping biodrones, genetically engineered caretakers designed to maintain chaos. Ilara tapped her temple, unlocking her synchronized override, sending a pulse that lanced through circuitry and returned the drones to dormant standby. Kale's eyes widened. This was the arsenal they needed. He strode forward, reverently touching a dormant unit's smooth carapace. Each drone would tip the scales in the coming uprising across Vascor. With a suppressed grin, he signaled Ilara. It was time. Above, the arena's final match was called. A jeweled horn sounded, and spectators surged, but instead of entering the ring, Kale and Ilara emerged on a side walkway, flanked by Awakening, drones whose optics flared to life. The crowd gasped as they realized this was no sanctioned act. Consortium guards drew energy rifles, but the biodrones intercepted, subduing them with non-lethal force. Kale raised his voice, augmented through stolen comm channels, declaring the end of human enslavement and the rise of a new order founded on unity between species. Shock rippled through the stands, then erupted into cheers as freed human slaves joined the platforms, tying chains into banners of rebellion. In one swift stroke, the games that had once defined destiny were transformed into the crucible of liberation. Dawn found Kale and Ilara atop the cratered ruins of the old control tower overlooking the pit. Below, the liberated masses began constructing. A council hall from molten glass shards, symbolic of renewal forged from destruction. Ilara's vines had been replanted, glowing brighter in the new morning. Kale, gauntleted hands steady, addressed the gathering crowd. Humans and aliens, former gladiators and exiles, all united under a banner stitched from the consortium's tattered flag. Plans unfurled for the reconstruction of Vascor's shattered communities and the integration of technology once used for oppression into systems of care, medical pods, hydroponic gardens, and education beacons. A chorus of hopeful voices rose, like a tide, affirming the dawn of an era where strength served compassion. Kale and Ilara stood together at the apex of the broken control tower as the first light of Vascor's dawn painted the sky in molten gold. Below them, the newly liberated pit had become a forge of hope. Freed humans and aliens side by side were dismantling iron cages, repurposing the shattered volcanic glass into the foundations of a council hall. A gentle breeze stirred Ilara's pale blue hair and carried the scent of smoldering embers mixed with blossoms from the bioluminescent vines she had reintroduced. Kale tightened his grip on the jagged horn crown he had claimed in the final battle. No longer a trophy of blood sport, but a symbol of unity. Around them, the crowd's cheers rose and fell like a tide, each voice a testament to a world reborn. The consortium's command cruiser still hovered on the horizon, its hull scarred by the uprising skirmishes. Riders on repurposed biodrones, once hunters of the arena, now patrolled the perimeter, enforcing the peace their masters had fought to crush. Kyle turned to Ilara and spoke through their bond, gratitude and resolve intertwining. This is just the beginning, he thought, and she answered with a warmth that steadied his soul. Plans unfurled in their minds, forging alliances with neighboring colonies, teaching the freed slaves to mend wounds both physical and emotional, and transforming the old arena into a sanctuary of art and learning. Their people would rise not by the sword alone, but by mercy and innovation. As the new council gathered beneath the glass mosaic floor, its patterns shifting like living starlight, Kale knelt and placed the horn crown upon Elara's head. Her silver-inked eyes shimmered with tears of joy. Then she rose and affixed a circlet of desert lilies upon his brow, a gesture of hope woven from the planet's harsh soil. The crowd fell silent as the two surveyed the assembly, humans once forced to slaughter and aliens once conditioned to obey. Each face held scars, but also fierce pride. Together, they swore an oath to protect all who had been called monsters or slaves, to uphold justice for every soul, and to ensure that no one would ever again wear chains in the pit of ash. In the weeks that followed, the Grand Arena's subterranean vaults were repurposed into healing wards, the crystalline floors reflecting the soft glow of med pods and hydroponic gardens. Former gladiators became teachers and guardians, instructing the young in both combat arts and empathy. Elara's telepathic gift was harnessed to foster understanding between species, easing old grudges and planting seeds of trust. Kyle oversaw the reconstruction of Vascor's shattered infrastructure, his hands steady as he guided workers to reroute water channels and stabilize faltering domes. No decree was issued without counsel. Every voice carried weight in this new democracy. One evening, beneath the twin moons now free of syndicate blots, Kale and Elara walked the reclaimed sands of the pit. Where once only death had echoed, children now laughed as they turned glass shards into smooth beads for necklaces. A bioluminescent vine curled around a shattered pillar, its soft light guiding the way. The wind carried voices of hope, songs of old Earth and Lorar, melodies of resilience and rebirth. Elara linked her mind with Kale's, sharing the simple joy of this quiet moment. "We have done more than survive," she sent. "We have given life back to a world." He squeezed her hand, and together they listened as Vascor's heart beat strong once more.